There are only a few days left to join the Business Edit Group coaching program before prices increase on January 1st. If you're a service provider who's feeling overwhelmed, overworked, and underpaid, don't let another year go by staying stuck. If you want this to be the year that you finally build the business of your dreams, one that lights you up, doubles your revenue, and allows you to work part-time hours, now is the time to join. In this program, you'll follow my signature 5-step method for building a productive and profitable business. You'll get business minimalist strategy, marketing systems, and productivity roadmaps that are simple to understand and easy to implement, plus 12 months of weekly coaching to help you overcome any road bump that comes up along the way. Let this be the year that you finally hit your revenue goals and create a life first business. Join me inside the Business Edit at www.jadeboyd.co/coaching and get my step-by-step blueprint with everything you need to build your dream business in 2024. Again, the early sign-up pricing ends on December 31st, and the program will officially kick off on January 2nd. So don't wait. If this sounds appealing to you, but you're not sure if it's the right fit, feel free to DM me on Instagram and we can chat. My only goal here is to help you make the right decision for you and your business. And you can find me on Instagram at jadeboyd.co. Now back to the show. Welcome to the Jade Boyd Podcast, a podcast about redefining productivity for the modern woman in business. I'm your host, Jade Boyd. As a business coach, I help overwhelmed business owners simplify and scale their service-based businesses with smart marketing strategies and seamless systems. On this podcast, we talk about all things marketing and productivity. If you're ready to strategically grow your business, ditch the busy work, and make space for what really matters, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Jade Boyd Podcast. Hello. This has been a long time coming, and I'm so excited to be here recording the first episode of this podcast. And welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I wanted to record this introduction episode just to give you an idea of what this podcast is about and what you can expect from me during this first year of the podcast. And I definitely want to start by introducing myself if you haven't met me yet and just stumbled across this podcast while searching for business productivity or marketing tips. I'm going to give a short scattered introduction of who I am and what I do, and tell you guys a little bit more about what you can expect from the podcast and episodes and guests and all that good stuff this year. So I'm going to dive right in. Obviously, my name is Jade Boyd, the host of this podcast, and I live in Iowa City. I grew up in small town Iowa, and I came to Iowa City in 2011 to get my bachelor's in business management. I studied entrepreneurial management, actually, and that's really when I fell in love with entrepreneurship. After I graduated, I worked in student affairs a couple years, and like a lot of entrepreneurs who leave the 9 to 5, I just felt like it wasn't for me. There was nothing about my job in particular that I didn't like, other than working for somebody else and feeling like my time was not my own. So I was kind of struggling to actually know what I wanted to do at that point. And so I quit my job. I went on a missions trip to South Africa for 6 weeks and came back and started my MBA in marketing. So I went back to school to study more business, but this time specifically in marketing instead of in entrepreneurship. And I absolutely loved it. It was such a good fit for me. And I get super excited talking about branding and strategy and marketing systems and all of that good stuff. And it was just a blast to spend 2 years fully immersed in that, learning from awesome classmates and professors. And it was, just one of those best experiences of my life that sometimes I want to go back to, especially as a solopreneur. I miss sitting around a table and talking to other people about nerdy business topics. Anyway, after I graduated, I was looking at all these different corporate jobs and still struggling with knowing what I wanted to do. I knew I loved marketing, but I was looking at all of these marketing roles and realizing that the job descriptions did not sound very exciting at all. And in my last semester, decided that I was going to start my own business and forge my own path. And I ended up choosing photography. And I feel like I am the most out there entrepreneur because I feel like most people fall in love with a certain thing, especially creative entrepreneurs. Like they have their creative field that they're really passionate about, whether that's photography or writing or website design or graphic design or social media marketing. They just have a thing that they're passionate about. They start doing it, they build a business, and then they learn the business skills afterwards. But I kind of took the opposite approach and learned a ton about business, fell in love with business and entrepreneurship and marketing itself. And then I just chose from my laundry list of business ideas. I had probably 10 ideas and I could have started with any of them, but it was a really crazy season in my life. And long story short, I graduated with my MBA. I got engaged and married in 6 months. I started this photography business. We also started what we thought was going to be a 3-month renovation project, which is now going on 2+ years. And COVID happened all within that year after I graduated. So it was a crazy season, and I'm glad that I started with photography, and it is something I truly love. Um, but it was a really tough season. It was a really, really tough season. But out of that, I connected with another entrepreneur here in the Iowa City area, and I started doing marketing consulting with her part time for small businesses, mostly helping them clarify their brand and marketing strategy so that all of the materials we're making for them were on brand and conducive to their strategy. And I did that part time until I was ready to take my photography business full time. And so, after about 8 months of doing part time both, I took my photography business full time and niched down into brand photography, which seemed to just make so much sense because I loved helping business owners. I loved working with business owners. I loved the marketing strategy side of it, but I also love photography. So, brand photography was that perfect way to combine both of those skill sets. And it's something that I really enjoyed doing over the past couple years. And this past year, I have had the itch to get back into consulting or coaching. And I've had a few entrepreneurs reach out to me and ask me to help them with different aspects of their business, whether it's clarifying their brand strategy or coaching them one on one or doing a one time meeting to help them set up some systems. And organically, it's still kind of growing, and I'm figuring out what that area of my business will look like moving forward. But as a brand photographer, I think I knew right away that I was different than most photographers in the aspect that I didn't fall in love with photography first and then learn business. Like I said, I went into it a little bit backwards. But second of all, I am just a super organized person. I am an Enneagram 1. I can remember being obsessed with planners and productivity since high school. Ever since, I've always had a planner. I've always been so interested in learning about research behind habit formation and looking at different systems for personal development and reading from, David Allen and James Clear, Michael Hyatt. And then on the organization side, I became a Marie Kondo fan early on and have physically organized my life, which is really hard in construction, but you know, we're making progress. If you follow me on Instagram, you can get the backstory on this house construction craziness that's happening over here. And sometimes it's a lot of fun. It's fun sometimes. I love the design aspect, but it can get kind of crazy. But anyway, Marie Kondo, I'm a fangirl. The Home Medic Gals, Martha Stewart has some great organizing resources, although she's not the most popular home organization person, I would say. I'm not into gardening or cooking, so I don't pick up that stuff. But the organization stuff I love. And I've always been planner obsessed. And I have hopes and dreams one day of publishing my own planner too. So subscribe and follow along, and you'll see if that happens in the next few years. Anyway, I've always been obsessed with productivity and organization. And as a photographer, I realized that I was doing things that came very natural to me, like creating brand photo shoot plans and sending out a questionnaire ahead of time so that I could create a shot list ahead of time, and doing all of these things in a structured way that most photographers would just show up and shoot. And there's nothing innately wrong with doing that. But since my clients are business owners, I do feel like they valued, and I mean, I don't feel like it. I know it because they told me. They valued having a plan ahead of time and knowing what to expect and having me help them pick out every little detail and creating mood boards and creating shot lists and helping them think through like who's their target market and what types of photos do they need for their content plan, what's the goal of this photo shoot, and helping them walk through every step of that process. That really did set me apart from a lot of photographers who are trying to get into brand photography, which I feel like is a newer field. I'm seeing a lot more photographers get into it, which is exciting. But it's still something new that I think a lot of photographers are thinking about or inching towards, mostly for the time freedom that it brings, I think. But also working with businesses is really different and it can be exciting and fun in a different way. So I've been excited to see more photographers, especially locally, get into brand photography, and have worked with a few and collaborated with a bunch. So it's been fun to see that. But back to the productivity and organization thing, I think that those skill sets are something that a lot of creative entrepreneurs or small business owners, solopreneurs in general crave, because I don't know about you, but I tend to get paralyzed when I feel overwhelmed in my business or my life. And I see that from so many entrepreneurs. They feel stuck in their business, even if they have an established business and it's thriving based on the numbers. The amount of hours they're working and the amount of, I don't know what to call it, like emotional energy they're giving to their business is too much and it's draining them and it's unsustainable. And I feel like entrepreneurs are facing burnout, especially in these last couple years, at unprecedented rates. And this is something that I've seen in marketing trend reports recently too. In the next episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about marketing trends for this year, so stay tuned for that. But people are just craving to go back to this time when things were simple, because in our modern world, things have gotten super complicated and overwhelming. And it's natural as a business owner, as a person who feels like you need to do it all and have all these societal expectations on you, to feel so overwhelmed and like paralyzed and not be able to show up for the things that matter most, or not even be able to have the time and space to think about what does actually matter most and why am I doing what I'm doing. And I think it's even easy to build a business, and a very successful business, and realize that you don't actually like what you've built. And so I do see that there's this need and this area that I can help entrepreneurs. And this podcast is a way of exploring how to do that and sharing some of my knowledge, and in just the hopes that if you're a beginner or established entrepreneur who's feeling just overwhelmed or scattered in your business, my hope and plan for this podcast is that it'll serve as a helpful resource to you and to help you not only clarify the purpose and mission behind why you started your business, what your brand's all about, but to give you the tools you need to systemize and scale without working crazy hours and risking burnout. So, moving forward, we're going to do a mix of solo episodes and guest interviews. And I'm so excited about some of the people I have lined up to interview this year, and I can't wait to bring those episodes to you. My plan is to publish an episode twice per month this year. So if this sounds like something you're going to want to follow along with, please hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to this podcast. And here's the last thing I want to leave you with today. My goal for this podcast is to really help you, women in business who are struggling to do it all, to find ways to simplify and organize your business and your life. And in order to do that well, I really need to hear from you. I need to hear what you're struggling with, what you need help with, ways that this podcast could serve you. So if you want to connect with me on Instagram, head on over to Instagram at jadeboyd.co and just send me a DM and tell me you listened to the podcast today, and share with me a way that I can help you through this podcast, or an area in your business that you want to learn more about, or that you feel is way overcomplicated and could be simplified or is frustrating. And I'll see if I can't send you some resources immediately or try to get a guest speaker or record a solo episode myself in the future, because I do want this podcast to be as helpful for women in business as possible. So thank you for listening today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Jade Boyd Podcast. If today's episode was helpful, I'd be so grateful if you'd leave me a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to the podcast today. Your reviews help more small business owners discover helpful episodes every week. And if you want more productivity and marketing tips, head on over to Instagram and follow me at jadeboyd.co. And lastly, don't forget to check out the show notes for the tools and resources we discussed on today's episode before you go. I'll see you next time on the Jade Boyd Podcast.